I'd say February was probably the most mixed bag of a month I've had so far in terms of rail fanning. It started off on February 6th at the depot. You can see LaPorte Railfan rush up to the tracks as this duo of NS Gevos and an intermodal approaches. And not soon after was the train we were looking for, the Amtrak Floridian. The westbound return run of the Floridian was extremely delayed on this day, about 7 hours, so I was able to actually catch it in daylight. However, the fact that I was able to catch it in daylight and that it was the Floridian wasn't the only thing special about this train, because as you can see, Amtrak Dash 8 Phase 3 Heritage Unit number 160, otherwise known as the Pepsi Can, was leading the train on this day. Then, on February 10th, as you can probably tell by what's on screen right now, I got scammed by another Fakebonnet. Actually, it was the same Fakebonnet I had already seen, number 783, seen here on the jump scared while leaving section of the wall of Fakebonnet scams. The locomotive was leading an empty return CSX oil train, and it happened to come through Walkerton as soon as the sun went down. Like, down to the minute. If this train had come 2 weeks later, when the days had gotten longer thanks to it getting closer to spring, it would have come at least during the blue hour, which would have been better than complete darkness. Since there's no lights in Walkerton, I decided not to go out for it, and we add a 5th entry to the wall of Fakebonnet scams. Even with that crushing defeat, we're back to foaming the very next day on February 11th. We're at the depot, specifically at the hospital spot, because as you can see, it's dark. And first up, we got a Norfolk Southern Intermodal with a Dash 9 leader nice, Ace trailing second and AC44 in third. The next train was also very nice. It was a CPKC transfer manifest. Leading was a BNSF Gevo, acting as double 4 in power. Behind that was a CP Gevo, and behind that was a KCSM AC44. Very nice. Love to see those fallen flag CPKC engines. And next was the Amtrak Floridian with the exact same consist, except this time the Charger is leading and the Pepsi Can is trailing second. Wait a minute, that's the wrong beverage. There were absolutely no special units coming through on either of the lines for pretty much the entire middle of February, so it wasn't until February 19th that we got back trackside just for some random trains. The deal was that we would catch 2 trains and then go home. As you can see, the 2 trains happened to arrive at the exact same time, leading to an almost perfect meet of this westbound Norfolk Southern manifest with an ACC leading and 2 AC44s behind it, and an eastbound Norfolk Southern Intermodal with a Gevo leading and C6M in the middle. On February 23rd, one of my mom's friends who lives in Florida sent us this picture of US Sugar number 148. And here we are at the depot for some random trains on February 23rd. This trip came about with a pretty funny coincidence. My grandma felt left out because she was the only one I hadn't asked to take me railfanning yet, and so I agreed to let her take me railfanning on a trip just for some random trains. I was hoping that something special would come by, but nothing did. Unless you count this Norfolk Southern Intermodal with a Tier 4 GEVO leading and regular 1 trailing. And this only has 80 Tier 4 GEVOs, so they're kind of rare. Despite the fact that there was nothing special coming, there were quite a few rail fans there, around 10. Yeah, it was quite a big gathering of the rail fans. Don't exactly know why, I'm assuming it was like some sort of meetup event or something, but yeah. Unfortunately for all of us, the line was extremely dead this day. It took 30 minutes before the next train arrived, which was an eastbound BNSF intermodal with 2 GEVOs. It was another bland and freezing 45-minute wait before the next train arrived. A BNSF Elkhart originating manifest with a GEVO leading and a BN-9 trailing second. Okay, so that's actually a BN-9, but I can't see the SF initials because the -9 decided to be a pyromaniac and burn them off. Yeah, -9s are weird like that, if I haven't made that clear by now. We knew a dry spell was approaching, so we went ahead and ate dinner at Culver's while we waited for it to end. We got back in time to catch this Norfolk Southern sand train with an ace leading and a C6M trailing. That was planned to be the final train, but as we were walking back to the car, this westbound jump scared us with the C6M and GEVO. The next day, on February 24th, we got jump scared again. We weren't expecting to see a CN train. In fact, this is the first time I've ever seen one at this crossing. But yeah, we definitely weren't expecting this, and I forgot to turn my mic sound on, so I had to pause the video to do that, so that's why there's a cut. Anyways, the train was a CN manifest with 2 Tier 4 GEVOs. Then, on February 25th, two things happened. First, my mom managed to get these two photos of a CN-C6M in the middle of a train while she was on her way to work. And that afternoon, I headed to Walkerton to do some rail fanning. And as soon as I arrived, I saw every foamer's worst nightmare: active maintenance of way equipment. However, as you can see by this guy climbing out, they had finished their work by the time I got there, thankfully. Parked in the Mao yard, which I normally park in, but it was completely filled on this day, we see a CSX Mao truck designated for Jacksonville, Florida. This guy's come a long way. And we also see one of the big CSX Mao dump trucks with a flatbed connected to it carrying a backhoe. We go ahead and take a look back at I think that's a spreader down there, for a second before our first westbound arrives, a CSX International Intermodal with a pair of ES40 DC GEVOs. This was cool and... Wait, you hear that? Is that music? There's never music in the Railfanning. Why are we leaving? Past me, there's a train right there. Oh wait, I forgot to fill you in on the most important part of this Railfanning trip. We're pacing this time. Now, this was my first time pacing a freight train, and I was already having an absolute blast, but things are about to get even better because the road and track start to get close to each other in this section. Now we're exiting the sweet spot. The highway and track are starting to separate once again. So after a short bit of going farther away from the train, we decided to pull over onto a road, cross the tracks, and turn around to head back to the Railfanning spot and wait for the next westbound. You may frown on me for using Mimi Dream speedrun music in that section, but come on, that was like 3 minutes of GEVOs. And if you made it through that, then you're in here for the long haul watching this video. and you better be excited because we got some better paces coming up soon. But before that could happen, we took a brief look at the abandoned Elkhart and Western crossing in Walkerton. It was only about 5 minutes before the next westbound arrived, and as you can see, the leader is orange. We got excited thinking maybe it would be a BNSF lash up, but we massively underestimated how epic this would be. Not only was the sun getting perfect in lighting, and not only had I repositioned my microphone perfectly, but the train was an H1-9 leader with 2 CSX Gevos behind it. Needless to say, that was extremely awesome. Not only was it an H1-9, not only did it have an RS3L, I think that's an RS3L at least, I'm not a horn nerd, and someone left the door on the second CSX Gevo open. This was really cool. This train was also going much faster than the first one, which is weird since it's oil cans and the first one was an intermodal. Strange. Anyways, once we made it back to the regular railfanning spot, it was a long time before another train approached. But we did get to see the CSX Mao truck reverse into the Mao building in the meantime. But I'm sure you can see that's a westbound approaching. Okay, so remember how a while ago I said that on February 10th I missed BNSF 783 leading a CSX oil train and said if it came back, I don't know, 2 weeks later, then maybe it would have been a better shot because it would have been during the blue hour instead of in the middle of the night? Well, yeah, I want you to pay close attention to the lash up on this train as we begin pacing it. As it turned out, the exact same lash-up had come back onto CSX, and was lingering out East Coast for a few weeks and came back precisely on this day. I had this pacing planned for an entire week, and this was a complete coincidence. It was so cool though. As you just saw, we abandoned the pace early and rushed to this crossing because I wanted some non-wind muffled audio of the horn. Afterward, while we were driving back to the Railfanning spot, we ended up seeing UP I-191, a UP transfer that we couldn't pace because we were already going back. And when we made it back to the Railfan spot, we picked up McDonald's to eat before this eastbound CSX coal train with 2 Gevos headed by. And before we could finish eating our food, a BNSF oil train showed up. The 3rd one tonight. What the heck, CSX? Last up was 2 Gevos and a Dash 9. After that, I was absolutely convinced that things couldn't get any crazier as far as rail fanning. I was wrong. On February 28th, I was going to my grandma's house, and thankfully I had my camcorder with me, and as I was going, I noticed this incredibly slow CN manifest, so I quickly got this shot of it with the zoom lens. However, after visiting with her, I realized that the train had stopped and was sitting on the main line. So we headed onto the back roads to investigate. First we went to a crossing and realized that they had actually split the train to avoid blocking said crossing. And after a little bit more finagling around some back roads, we ended up finding the 2 locomotives. Those being a CN AC44 C6M number 3357, which is actually rebuilt from an ex-BNSF GECX-9, and then a CN Tier 4 Gevo number 3001. That number sounds familiar. New York Central aside, I have absolutely no idea why these 2 locomotives and their train of coil shields were parked here. They didn't give any obvious signs from just their appearance alone. We even turned around and drove back past them again to see if we could spot any, weird things on the locomotives, or maybe they had a traction motor failure or something. And even now, I still have no idea why they were stopped here. But I did get some really cool shots with the really imposing sky and nice sunset. Too bad there wasn't something more interesting on this train. Knowing it's CN, it could have been an ex-City Rail, BC Blueberry, or an SD75M or something. But I barely see CN anyway, so this was kind of nice. And speaking of SD75Ms, look what showed up! While we were there, we ended up getting this super cool static meet of the train that was stopped and the intermodal train, which had an SD75M and Gevo, and even a safety inspection boxcar. But yeah, given that this was the last day of February, we didn't see any more trains for the rest of the month. Really hope you enjoyed this video. This month was definitely a lot of ups and downs. I didn't even show me missing the XSP unit. Yeah. Anyways, I hope to see you next time for another documentary. and catch those units while you can.